Hello. Yesterday in class, we talked about the three different forms of using an expression. There's one in factored form. So 3 is a factor, and this expression is a factor. That factors are two things that are multiplied. This is called the expanded form. This kind of makes sense. You can see this written out the long way. There's 3 of these expressions. And finally, our preferred way to write it, which is the standard form. And I like to think about it as releasing the parentheses. So we're going to try to go from the factored form to the standard form, and we're going to use something called the distributive property. So would you please turn to the back side of your paper? We completed this example in class, and I'm going to refer to these little arrows as rainbows, or you can call them arrows, but it's indicating that this 6, using the distributive property, is being distributed with everything inside the parentheses. So we're going to see 6 with the W and 6 with the 2, and it's multiplying. Side by side means multiplying. Now the tough part is this reach over to the 2, because we don't see it as being side by side. However, the 6 in front of the set of parentheses means it's multiplying everything inside the parentheses. I also mentioned that I'm going to ask you to please circle your operation sign and use that plus sign as a positive 2. If it would have been a minus, we're going to use it as a negative 2. And there's a reason why as we start seeing more integer signs in our math. So when we finished this, we had 6W. 6 times 2 was positive 12. So we wrote that as plus 12. And this is as good as this expression is going to get. This is the answer, even though we'd like to continue. Because of this W, we cannot continue any further because we don't know what number replaces W. So this is the answer, and it's going to have to stay an expression. I ask you to do number 3 and number 4 in class. So pause this video if you didn't do it, and then come back and check your answers. All right, so the answer to number 3 is 5n plus 30, and the answer to number 4 is 9y plus 27. And this is unfortunately where we had to stop in class today. I chose those 3 because they deal with positive numbers. Everything's positive, and we don't have to worry so much about the integer signs. Now, starting from now, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, not tremendously difficult. We just have to be a little bit more aware of our signs. So for number 2, I'm going to say 3 times A. And by the way, I want you to show this. This is our roadmap to being able to fix an error if we need it to. And 3 times negative 4. So I'm going to look at that. Minus 4 is negative 4. This would be a great place to use your calculator. 3 times A, or once again in class we discussed that you can put a 1 in front of that A if it helps you realize this is 3A. And 3 times negative 4 would be a positive 3 times a negative 4, and the answer is going to be negative. 3 times 4 is 12, so we're going to write that the high school way as negative 12. But if you chose to, you could write it like this. They both are equivalent. We prefer this way because there's one sign instead of 2. Would you pause and try number 5 on your own? Very similar. All right, so the answer to 5 is 7x minus 35, or 7x plus negative 35 if you prefer. You're going to notice there's a star in number 6. What do you think looks different about that? If you noticed, there's a number coefficient in front of A. So we're going to have to write 4 times 2A. And remember, side by side means multiply. We have to go back to that 4 and distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. So 4 times 6. So this is something new. All of the other ones just had a variable by itself. We were able to place a 1 in front of some of them. So that's, instead of having a 1, now we have a 2. So 4 times 2 would be 8. And then we just bring the A down. And then 4 times 6 would be positive 24. So the answer to this is 8A plus 24. So we saved the most difficult ones for last. And this is going to be the reason why I'm asking to please not just drop down the sign. You may have noticed that in each of these examples, we could have just dropped down the sign. However, there's a reason I ask you to look at this as like a positive and this one like a negative. And that's because now we're going to have negative numbers outside the parentheses. And that's kind of a game changer. So would you please look at number 4 and number 5? The question says, what is different about the following expressions than the ones above? And it is indeed that negative number outside the parentheses. So this is kind of a game changer. We have to be very diligent when we're working with our integer signs. So we're going to start this just like we did, just like we would if we were working with another expression that didn't have a negative. We're going to start with negative 2 times y. Let me switch colors, might be easier to see. Negative 2 times y. That'd be just like the other beginning. And now I'm going to take negative 2 times 8. Negative 2 times what kind of 8? Well, positive 8. So negative 2 times y would be negative 2y. That makes sense based on what we've done. And now my integers really come into play. I have a negative 2 and a positive 8. So the answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to write minus 8. And you're going to notice inside was a plus, but our answer has a minus. Now once again, we could also write this as plus negative 8, but we prefer to write it with one sign. So now let's try that again. We're going to take negative 4 times x. Please show the factors. We're multiplying. We're going to look at this like a negative 5, so negative 4 times negative 5. And this was kind of that wacky rule. It doesn't necessarily make sense initially when we see it, but when we multiply a negative times a negative, the answer is positive. So this is going to be negative 4x, and this is going to end up being positive 20. And once again, we're seeing this minus sign, and it doesn't match what we're expecting it to be. So my best advice when you try this practice round is to please pay close attention to the signs, and your calculator is your friend. If you have it, use it. So what I'd like you to do now is I want you to turn to page 34 in your packet. Page 34 has expressions on top and answers on the bottom. So once you complete this, and I do want you to show your work. I want you to show this step and your answer, and then you will find your answer at the bottom of the page. If you don't see the answer that you came up at the bottom of the page, then that's a good indication that you need to go back and retry that problem. So here's what I want. Cohort 19 and 20, we didn't get as far in class today, so I would like you to pick the odd number problems and complete the odd number problems. Cohort 21 and 22, we did get through this, got through most of this back side of this paper, so I'd like you to go ahead and try all of them on page 34. I also want you to do this on the paper. I will attach a PDF of this, but I really want it done on the paper. And on Friday, we'll go over that and work out any errors in thinking or any problems we might have. Looking forward to seeing you on Friday. Take care.